And let's talk about federal stimulus. Do you believe the federal stimulus package helped or hurt Delaware in the short term? And do you believe the stimulus would have been better if it done more to help small businesses?
Mr. Guesty, the first response is yours this time.
Well, in the short term, the stimulus did help. I mean, if you throw $1.4 trillion at a financial problem, some of it's going to stick. And we did see some stabilization within that market, but eventually that starts to wear itself out. And that's why I mentioned before we're in QE3. As soon as we start to see things start to flag, the Fed kicks in and starts creating more money out of thin air and debases our currency and causes these financial problems. It's like giving a drug addict a fix. I mean, we threw the whole drugstore at the financial crisis, and we did stabilize some things. But now every time things turn south, we just give the drug addict another shot. The problem is, if you keep doing that, eventually the patient dies, and that drug addict dies. And then we're going to kill our economy if we continue to create money, because it's going to debase our currency. The world is going to lose confidence in our currency. They're going to lose confidence because our debt is so high, over 100% of GDP. So in the short term, yes. In the long term, it's going to be a lot worse.
Mr. August.
Yes, America's premier as the fiat currency of the world could be coming to an end because of the overprinting of the money. I agree with Scott on that point. But the question that you asked about, did it help the economy? It did give the economy a blip for a good while. The issue of it is, it probably would have actually, if they had another decent infusion of money into the economy, we would probably be experiencing positive growth in jobs. But the Republicans decided not to go with that infusion of cash, and now we're having massive layoffs right now because we can no longer afford to buy the products. We are going to have a really severe inflationary spiral coming up. And it's going to kill the actual economy of the world if we don't get this financial crisis under control.
That's time, sir. Thank you. Mr. Kovac.
The federal stimulus was a short-term fix. And again, this fix is more in the user sense, as in it got us relying upon government money. Everybody, all of a sudden, all the state legislatures, and I was there, scrambled for this money, scrambled to utilize this money, back-funded positions with this money, inappropriately utilized this money. It didn't fix anything. The federal stimulus did not fix our problems. It let us run away from our problems. Yes, we were in such bad shape that short-term action had to be taken. It's an action that I would have preferred make sure went to these infrastructure improvements that help improve the quality of life. And yes, can even create short-term jobs. But what we need to do is revise our system. You mentioned small business. Small business is the economic driver that's going to get us out of this economic hard times. We need to reduce burdensome, feel-good regulations on our small businesses to allow them to start up, to assist them in their efforts to start up.
Okay, Mr. Kovac, thank you. And Mr. Carney.
Well, we're unanimous then. The stimulus package did have a positive impact on the economy at a time when we needed it the most. Important investments were made in infrastructure that are the foundation of our economy and for future economic growth. More of that money should have gone to infrastructure investments, in my opinion, and we see a number of those across our state. The question really is, what do we do now? People that I talk to across our state who are out of work want to know what the government's going to do now. And what the economic leaders of our country tell you, that we need a fiscal plan for the future that avoids the fiscal cliff, counter-stimulative in the short term, so that we don't have huge tax increases or huge spending cuts next year, and that puts our country on pace for a more balanced federal budget in the long term. That's the most important thing that we can do for the country today.
Quick follow-up, Mr. Carney. This was an entrance for everyone to chime in eventually. Considering the interesting time in regard to the stimulus when you entered Congress, has your perception of it changed from when you first heard about it and as we sit here today in terms of what you thought it would do and what it ultimately did?
No, I think that all economists, and you had everyone across this panel, from Mr. Guesty, Mr. August, Mr. Kovac, myself, all agreed that in the short term it had a very positive impact. I think the real key was to make sure that those investments improved overall infrastructure in our country, ports, bridges, roads, highways, all that kind of thing, which are the foundation. Those are crumbling across our country. We need more of it today, frankly. in our fiscal plan that I would support, a big part of that would be continued investments, research and development, education, job training, as well as infrastructure, because those investments bring returns to small businesses and other medium-sized and large businesses in the future.
Who else?
One of those investments should also be education and in providing for early childhood education. That's a key investment that we can make, and that has shown as to be not only a good investment for our children and their well-being, but a good economic investment that actually helps the next generation out by getting them in a position that they can be taxpayers instead of relying upon that system.
Mr. August.
Well, I didn't like something you said, Tom, and that is you forgot about the human factor in all. We're forgetting about the human factor in all this. The TARP was actually helping to keep schools open and teachers working because of municipal bankruptcies, because of the selling of their bonds abroad. So it was a good thing to do. It kept police on the street. It kept teachers in classrooms and school systems opened up for the year. And then also, too, as it did give some money to infrastructure. All of these problems can be addressed. We need what we have in the Green Party called the New Green Deal. It's based on the Roosevelt New Deal, and this is what we need to do. We need to put people to work immediately on all sorts of jobs to make work so it brings our society back to some kind of civil order.
Final comment on this, Mr. Guesty.
Yes, thank you. If you look at how much money that the federal governments and the state governments have thrown in the economy, it's over $6 trillion since 2008. And in that time, adjusted for inflation, government investment, which is your shovel-ready jobs, has actually gone down 0.1%. What has gone up is transfer payments, and that's things like food stamps to the tune of 120%, 76% increase to give subsidies for green energy. So we always have to remember when we talk about jobs, government doesn't create jobs besides government jobs, and we can talk about whether that's good or not, but they don't create jobs. It's government's responsibility to create the environment for other businesses to create jobs, and they do that by keeping regulations as low as possible, having a low, steady tax environment so businesses can plan. Stimulus is only going to go so far, and throwing money at things is only going to get you so far.
Yeah, I guess we should let people starve to death, too, while we wait for these businesses to create those jobs.